All right, gentlemen, let me share my screen, start the broadcast, and we're going to start right here. Oh, wait, one other thing. Let's see, is somebody there? No, we're good. That's fine. Go away. All right, gentlemen, so welcome. We're going to start here. You, come on. It's a single page. Okay. All right, so welcome. This is what, College Algebra 1 with online lab, right? So hopefully you all had a great weekend. I meant to check something, but I don't really want to do it now. Where is it? There it is. That looks good. Okay, that's all I want. All right. So as a, not rule of thumb, but like, I almost want to say order of operation. I can't think of how I want to phrase it, but essentially, as far as attendance, right? So I typically take attendance right at the start of class. You know, I just got out of my 2 o'clock session. I give myself about 10 minutes, right? And then, so I do the best I can to try to start right at the start of class. So I say that to say, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because you all are here. So I do applaud you for that. You're here. You definitely want to try to be in a waiting room about 5 minutes before the start of class, because I do my first wave like on the money as best I can. And then I kind of ignore the waiting room until the 15-minute mark. Because otherwise, if I'm like letting students in and taking their attendance as they show up, it's very disruptive, right? So it's like I'm constantly stopping, you know, losing my train of thought, that kind of thing. So I'll do my first wave right at the start of class. I ignore my waiting room until the 15-minute mark. 15 minutes, I try to go back and check again. People that make it in within that 15-minute mark, I usually give them full attendance credit. Like I don't penalize them. But beyond that second wave, you're lucky if I, get into it. Let me see as far as announcements. So last week we did the orientation. I made it a point to say that all of my pre-recorded lectures are available. The due dates for each assignment is next to it. So to each assignment. So we did have some assignments due like in the night, right? So the first homework and the first quiz. But there's no need to fret about it. There's only a 10% late penalty. You can still get unlimited attempts at all assignments. So you can still earn up to 90% on that one assignment. And keep in mind also that homework is 10% of your overall grade. So 10% of 10% is like a fraction of a fraction, right? So it's a minimal penalty. It's almost nothing. And then also like, if it's like at the end of the semester and you're close and I haven't given you credit for that late first assignment, I'm just going to give you credit for it, right? If you're that close at the end, I'm not going to let that penalty stop you from like, if it's the difference between one letter grade and another, right? So I don't want you guys stressing too much about that late penalty for the first assignment. The main thing is that you're gaining full access to my math lab and you're go ahead and get started. There's a natural extension built into all assignments. It's just that anything submitted late, the highest you can earn is a 90. What else? And then, hopefully you all were able to gain access using the temporary access code, right? So it should be a 14-day trial. I still haven't gotten any update as far as the administrators negotiating a reduced price for access to my math lab, but you just want to be ready to purchase full access within another week or so. And then if you did miss our session last time, as far as the orientation, I want to direct you to my YouTube channel, right? So hopefully everybody is subscribed to my YouTube channel. It's a shameless plug, but that's the way I communicate with you all. When I start responding to like homework questions, a lot of the experiences you just want to be aware, right? As long as you're aware, like, oh, I remember he made a video about that. Let me go watch that specific question. I had a question about that one too. I couldn't figure it out. Let me see what he's saying. Versus if you don't have your notifications on, and then it's like, well, I'm constantly having to repeat myself, right? And then I get irritated. But I mean, that's my job to kind of woosah, But again, the recommendation is be subscribed to my YouTube channel with the notifications turned on. And then when the semester's over, you can still leave the subscription, just maybe change the notification setting, right? It's just as a thank you or an homage or whatever. So we kind of touched on the homework. We talked about how each assignment, we have unlimited attempts. The system is going to take our highest score, and there's a natural extension built into all assignments. So even if you miss that first one, you can still get enough points to keep moving, and you won't even notice it. If you just just go ahead and get started. Did you guys have any questions for me? Going once, going twice? Okay, so if you do have questions, feel free to unmute yourself to get my attention. I'm watching the clock. I will kind of check the waiting room again around the 15-minute mark. And then also, some students, I know that they had group meetings. I think that's a great idea. So I don't know. And I'm pretty sure you all started a group meet as well. So I would, if you're not on that, I would encourage you all to kind of, work amongst yourselves with that's concerned. Also, it's a good idea to seek out the tutors. I don't know that the tutoring service is officially set up, but you definitely want to go ahead and maybe contact the mathematics office and inquire about the tutoring service. And then again, there are on my YouTube channel, there are two main playlists. Let me show you how to access them. So if we hop over to Blackboard, right, and we go to our course, and this is just an overview of pretty much everything we did last week with the orientation. I think that's going to be this one. Right, so this is our main landing page, right? So if we open up this main folder, you guys made it into the Zoom, so that's the first hurdle. Any PDFs, like as we start to go through the notes and things of that nature, I'm going to load it into this folder number 2 that says box link, so you can access PDFs there. And then my math lab is folder number 3 where it says assignments. So if you click on that, that's where all the homework, quizzes, and exams are going to be. And then my YouTube links, let's open that up. For you all, the main 2 that you need is the first link and the last link. The first link are all the pre-recorded lectures for the semester. So because all the homework and quizzes are available, you can actually complete all assignments for the semester with the exception of the exams. The exams have a staggered release throughout the semester. But homework and quizzes are available. All lectures, like anything I want to say in any given section, is in that first link. The second link is just kind of like an Easter egg. It's basically the same thing for College Algebra 2. It's just the next progression. So that, if you want to do my College Algebra 2, I mean, that's there. And I pretty much do the same structure for College Algebra 2. It's just the next set of information. And then the other piece of information that you need is that third link that says the current lectures for the fall of 23. So, for instance, this session and what we talked about last week, I'm putting into that third link. And you can actually kind of like peek in on my sessions with pretty much all of my students for the fall of 23, right? So you can watch things there. And again, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself. I do monitor the chat. I'll check my waiting room. And one student just emailed me. He said he's been in here since 3, and we started class at 3. He got in probably like 30 seconds later, but get this way because again, I can't keep stopping. That's too disruptive. So I'll check it again. As long as he just waits, he'll get in there and he'll be fine. And then Morehouse have my pre-recorded lectures because again, I make these available on my YouTube. Okay. Try not to say but I don't care. To be honest, I'm just trying to move this. Okay. Okay. Let's. So again, I'm doing today's lecture kind of as a courtesy, but again, I would like to reiterate that this is remote asynchronous, which means that most of your learning is done independently and on your own. So that's why I went on and took my time and made pre-recorded lectures of everything I wanted to say for each section, and you actually have access to that right now. You've had access to that since we started. So we'll go through section 1.1, as much of 1.1 together as we can. But I do expect you to watch my pre-recorded lectures, take notes as if you're in class, write down your questions. You can either email me your questions or just ask me the next time you see me. So you want to make sure to get your questions answered or get your answers questioned, whichever floats your boat, right? Okay. So let's take some time. Let's go ahead and get started with this section. And again, I'll check my waiting room because I'm trying to give the second wave of students time to get in there and just wait. So I want to give them 5 more minutes, and then I'll do a second wave. So we're going to go ahead and open up our discussion with chapter 1 on graphs and functions. And we're going to start with section 1.1, graphs of equations. A few objectives that we like to do here. We like to plot points in a Cartesian coordinate plane, find the distance between 2 points, find the midpoint of a line segment, sketch a graph by plotting points, find the intercepts of a graph, find the symmetries in a graph, and find the equation of a circle. All right. So obviously we just don't have enough time to go through all of these details. That's where my pre-recorded lectures come into play. Whereas we don't have the time now, I went on and took the time to say everything for all of these different components in my pre-recorded lectures, right? Let me plug this guy up. He's kind of fading on me. So we have some definitions. And again, I'm watching the clock. I want to give it another 4 minutes. So we have these definitions. We say that an ordered pair of real numbers is a pair of real numbers in which the order is specified, right? So for instance, if we have x comma y equals -3 comma 1, what this means is that x equals -3 and y equals 1. Right. So this order pair is called that because the order is important, right? The first component is your x, the second component is your y. So 2 order pairs are equal to each other if and only if their corresponding components are equal, right? So the first components are equal and the second components are equal. Right? So then it says the set of ordered pairs of real numbers are identified with points on a plane called the coordinate plane or the Cartesian plane. So we have our positive x-axis in this direction, our positive y in this direction, right? So if we take our x-axis and we lay it on top at a 90-degree on top of the y-axis, what it does is it breaks the flat surface up into 4 quadrants or 4 regions, right? So quadrant number 1 is going to be this upper right-hand region. So all of this in this direction, right? This is what we consider to be quadrant number 1, right? So then the progression of the quadrants, they progress counterclockwise. So then quadrant 2 is going to be this region, right? So the upper left is quadrant 2, bottom left is quadrant 3. So everything going in this direction. And bottom right is quadrant 4. Everything in this direction, right? Okay. So as we go to plot points, the ordered pair kind of serves as like a roadmap to where these points are on the flat surface. So we start at the origin, which is going to be 0, 0. Positive x is to the right. Negative x is to the left. Positive y is up. Negative y is down, right? So we start at the origin, and the ordered pair describes how we get to the second point. I'm going to hang out for another couple of minutes, and then I'll get the second wave of students. And if you want to, again, if you really want to get into that first wave, the recommendation is to be in the waiting room 5 minutes before the start of class. If you try to wait to right at the start of class, then you're at the mercy of if I'm running late or not. If I'm running late, then you have a greater chance of getting in that first wave. If I'm on time like I was today, then you're going to fall into that second wave, right? But as long as you get in by the second wave, you'll have access to everything you need. If you want to go back, you can always pull the recording from YouTube. So we have some definitions. We refer to the point corresponding to the ordered pair AB as the graph of the ordered pair AB in the coordinate system. The notation P of AB designates the point P in which the coordinate plane whose X coordinate is A and whose Y coordinate is B, right? So basically that's just a articulation of how to plot points. It's very intuitive. So for instance, I kind of left all the details here because this is pretty straightforward. We're asked to graph the following points in the XY plane. So for instance, the order pair for A is 3, 1. So that means we start at the origin, we go right 3 and up 1. So if we start at the origin, we go right 3 and up 1, you see A there. For B, if we start at the origin, we go left 2 and up 4. So if we go left 2 and up 4, you see B here. So for C, this says this point is going to be located, if we go left 3 and down 4. Left 3 and down 4, you see C. Right? So plotting points is fairly intuitive. Let's see my time. Okay, let me go ahead and check. I know there should be at least one student in there because he emailed me, but I just don't. I didn't have the time during class to kind of respond because we're in class. Let me do this. Hopefully that doesn't muck stuff up, but we're just gonna go with it. I think that was him. So let me get him. This one and him. Okay, cool. Looks good. Let him in. Let me check the chat real quick. Okay, so how to log into Pearson. Let me share my screen. So welcome, gentlemen. Let me just kind of say this because the gentlemen that were already here already heard what I'm about to say. But I just want to bring it to your attention so you can kind of plan going forward. So generally the way I take attendance and I let people into the room, I do my first wave like pretty much right at the start of class. I know one student emailed me. I was in there since 3, but I know you got there like seconds after the start of 3. The students that were already here, they were here in the waiting room about 5 minutes before the start of class. I took attendance. And so we were waiting for 3. As soon as it hit 3 o'clock, I went on to start it, right? And so basically, once I do that first wave of students, I kind of ignore the waiting room until the 15-minute mark because my experience, if I stop every time a student trickles in, then it's very disruptive, right? And it breaks my train of thought and all this other kind of stuff. So I'll do one wave as close to the start of class as I can. And then I kind of ignore the waiting room until about the 15-minute mark, and then I'll do a second wave. So as long as you make it in by that second wave, you've gotten your attendance credit for the day. Like I'm not going to penalize you or anything. And if you want to hear like the opening announcements, you just have to get on my YouTube channel and pull up the recording for this session. Let me show you how to access my YouTube. So if we go to Blackboard real quick, when we log into Blackboard, we get something that looks like this. We open up this folder. And so my YouTube is down on item number 4 for the links. And for you all, you need the first link and the third link. That second link is kind of an Easter egg. So all the pre-recorded lectures, like, what you can use to get ahead is that first link. And then for my current sessions, like what we did last week and what we did today, you want to use that third link. That second link is an Easter egg. That's the next progression. That's the next course, College Algebra 2. I just made it available for you all. Another thing I kind of actually need to bring to everyone's attention. So this class does have a lab component, which is separate from what we're doing. So on the left-hand panel in this maroon bar, just below course content, there's a link that says Online Alex Lab. You want to click on that and contact the facilitator of that, which is Dr. Lamar. And she facilitates the lab. And basically, you want to follow her instructions. Whatever, she has you all doing, just follow her instructions. And it's, for the midterm and the final, she's going to give me a grade for each student. And basically what I'm going to do is whatever grade she gives me, I'm going to take it and I'm going to scale it to 10% of your overall grade, right? So that lab component with Dr. Lamar accounts for 10% of your overall grade. If you have questions at any moment, feel free to unmute yourself to get my attention or type in the chat. I am monitoring the chat. Matter of fact, I feel like this is okay. I feel like who's going to be here is here. Let me pull this up here. I want to join. Yes, that is correct. Join. Wi-Fi. That looks good. That's fine. Stay a participant. Sorry. Where is it? I want to disconnect the audio. Come on. Got it. Sorry, guys. Give me a moment. Disconnect audio. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, but yeah. So I can see the chat. You guys look good. Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself. And again, I just wanted you all to be aware of the way I do my attendance. I do my first wave as close to the start of class. And then I wait 15 minutes, and I'm essentially, generally speaking, I'm watching the clock, right? So I usually do 2 main waves, the start and then the 15-minute. After that second wave, it's a toss-up, right? If you get in or if you get credit, right? That's a toss-up from there. But as long as you make it in by that second wave, you've gotten your credit, and then as long as you get your attendance credit and you're submitting your assignments promptly with high marks, that's the gist of my course, right? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
Every time I press on the links from the courses part to the Pearson, the My Lab, it just goes into an error.
What kind of browser are you using?
Safari.
What kind of device are you on? A tablet or iPad
MacBook.
or what is it? MacBook Pro?
Yes.
What kind of error message does it say? So if you're on Safari on a MacBook Pro, I would encourage you first, clear your cache, like clear your history, right? Just clear it out. And then second, you got to allow, you got to go into the settings and allow pop-ups. You need to allow cookies, right? So you have to allow pop-ups and allow cookies from this site, and then try it again.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, so allow cookies and allow pop-ups. And if that doesn't work, then try Chrome. It can work in Safari. Safari is not the best for this, but it does work because that's what I use. And I'm on an iPad, so iPad is even more restrictive than the MacBook Pro.
I might use Chrome then.
Yeah, just try Chrome, but you still might. I would encourage you to try those settings because it still might happen in Chrome as well. But again, the main thing is clear your cache, allow cookies, and allow pop-ups, and then kind of reset everything and then try it, and that should work. If that doesn't, try Chrome. And then from there, if that doesn't work, then I would contact Pearson. But that's a technical something. But usually, that protocol works.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. I need to get myself some water. Is there another question? You guys okay? Going once, going twice. Forever hold your peace and rights. Okay.
I have a question. My bad. I'm sorry.
You good.
Okay, so you said you do your attendance in waves. How do I come in here to validate my attendance if I came in during the second wave?
So I take attendance as I let students in. So if you make it into the Zoom and I don't say anything, then you've gotten your attendance credit.
Okay. Thank you.
Especially if it's within that second wave, right? Yeah. If it's after, if it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you may or may not get into the Zoom, and you may or may not get attendance credit beyond that. But yeah, okay. And then also with this section, so again, we're going through section 1.1 together as best we can. Whatever we don't do together, you are responsible for your own. And we kind of said a little bit more regarding that, but that's enough for right now. Okay, so here we have the distance formula in the coordinate plane. So recall that the Pythagorean theorem states that in a right triangle with hypotenuse of length C and legs of lengths A and B, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. It's again a Pythagorean theorem, right? So we have a right triangle. Oh, there it is. We have a right triangle with a short legs or lengths A and B, and then the hypotenuse is length C. So then in a right triangle, we have Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? So then let's see how this corresponds to finding the distance between 2 points on the coordinate plane. So let's do a rough sketch. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit like OCD here. Let's do a little bit meticulous. That looks good. Let's go paper. We want some graph paper. So I didn't do graph paper for my other students, but I don't know. I just felt the gumption to be more precise. It doesn't have to be that precise for this presentation, but okay. So let's say the origin is about here, right? And our positive x goes in this direction. There we go. So positive x is there. Let me see if I can move this to one item. Cool. Let's let the origin be about here. Okay. And then let's say the positive y is in this direction. Okay. So here's our positive x. I don't know why I can't write today. Let me adjust this thing. So our positive x is here. Our positive y. Oh, I guess I could just lay it flat. I don't know why I don't want to lay it flat. So our positive y is here. Oh, and we want to consider 2 points. So we're going to let's let this point here, we'll let this be our point P, which is going to be our x1, y1. And we'll let the point here be our point Q. Which is our x2, y2. All right. Okay. And so what we want to explore, we want to find the distance between these two points. And let's do blue. Style, blue, style, blue. Okay. So say we want to find the distance, right? So then, let's see, this here, right there. That looks good there. Let's go style. I'm gonna do a dash line. We can thicken it up a little bit. That's good like that. So this corresponds to what? X1. Come on, undo. This one. Right, so this here corresponds to X1, right? And then here corresponds to X2, okay? And then we have what, this? This, let me see, Y1 is about here. And Y2 is about here. Not that one. All right. It's the dash line is going through where Y2 is, right? Okay. So then this image should look familiar. All right. We just talked about this. Okay. So what's the basic shape? It's a right triangle, right? So let me see. Let's call this top side. We're going to call this A, side A. We're going to call this side B. And the long side, we're going to call side C. So if we want to apply the Pythagorean theorem is what? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So if we want to find A is going to be what? Basically our distance from here to here, right? That's A, from there to there. Our B is our distance from here to here, all right? Okay. So then let me do this, style, paper, where'd it go? Where are my options? No, not that one. Paper. That's not sure. All right, I gotta zoom out somehow. Settings, let's go seamless. Sorry, guys. It's been a little bit trippy. Come on. Paper. There it is. I want this. And yes, that's kind of okay. I don't need it to shrink that much though. About like there, it's good. And then let's go back to view. Single page, okay. All right, okay. So if we want to use Pythagorean theorem to find the distance between P and Q, so then what we had a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? But if we want to find that distance a, well, a is going to be the difference between x1 and x2. So we're going to capture that. Basically, we're going to subtract, right? So we're going to say x2 minus x1. Since we're doing a distance, we want the positive result from there. We want the positive, so the absolute value is going to force it to be positive. And then if we're applying it to the Pythagorean theorem, we're going to square this result. B is going to be a change in y. So we're going to say y2 minus y1. Again, because we're doing a distance, we take the absolute value. And if we're applying it to the Pythagorean theorem, we're going to square that result. And finally, we're going to finish with the distance between P and Q, quantity squared, right? So then if we use a little bit of algebra, if we want to get rid of the squared on the right-hand side, we take the square root on both sides. So the distance between P and Q is going to be the square root of, now here, if we square a positive number, it stays positive. So the square essentially like nullifies the absolute value. So we can actually just lose the absolute value. And that becomes x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, right? And that's the connection between Pythagorean theorem and finding and the distance finding, which you see here. Okay. So hopefully you all have a homework notebook where you're kind of being neat and organized. With anything that you see me writing here, I make a copy available on Box, right? So to access that, you go to Blackboard, and item number 2 is going to say Box link. You click on that, and you can get a PDF copy of what you see me writing here. So then in your notebook, you want to have a copy of the lecture, you know, as detailed and as neat as possible. It's also recommended that you have a copy of your homework, right? So any homework that you're doing, you know, it's neat, labeled and organized from section 1.1 or whatever it is. You have a copy of each original question, all supporting detailed work, and then your final answer in a box, right? That's for you, because it's a good chance that you're going to see this material again. Now, I know that right now, you know, you're not scheduled to be in a testing environment, but that doesn't mean that you won't be in a testing environment at some point, which means that you might have a proctor, you might have to call this stuff off the dome. So for right now, so I say that to say, like, you want to be sure to be doing your own work, because at some point you will be responsible for this material in a testing environment. And if you haven't been doing your own work, you just wasted your time and money, right? And I'm trying to minimize the number of occurrences that happens to students, right? And there's no need to do that. Like, you get unlimited attempts, a minimal late penalty. You know, the system is set to take your highest score, right? So then I bring all this up to say, so after your notes or the lecture notes, your homework, at some place in your homework notebook, give me just a moment. At some point in your homework notebook, it's a good idea to have a formula sheet, right? So every time you come across a formula, either in the notes or the homework or wherever, you want to update that sheet with the formulas, right? So this could be your first or maybe your second official formula, where your first could be the Pythagorean theorem. But so every time we come across a formula, it's a good idea to update your formula sheet, right? And so again, so we saw the derivation for the distance formula. So again, given 2 points P and Q, be any 2 points on the coordinate plane, then the distance between P and Q, denoted by D of PQ, is going to be given by the distance formula, right? And so again, this formula comes out of the Pythagorean theorem like we saw in the previous slide. So here is a type version of that discussion, right? So, pictorial representation. It's the same thing we did by hand, just, it's digital. Okay, but it's the concept is the same. Okay. Hopefully we're all aboard, and we're not all bored. We have right at about 10 minutes remaining. Again, if anything is not clear, feel free to unmute yourself to get my attention. The chat looks good. You guys look good. We're just going to kind of keep moving. So in this example, we're asked to find the distance between these points. Okay. So again, one of my mentors would suggest every time we use a formula, write it down, right? So since we're using the distance formula here, it's a good idea to write out the distance formula. That constant repetition, x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. The constant repetition of the formula is how you memorize it, how you ingrain it into your memory. Whatever we do the longest, we do the strongest. Whatever we practice, we get really, really good, right? So if you know how that goes. Another recommendation, whenever I get an ordered pair, I like to just automatically label this x1, y1, x2, y2, right? And so again, all the stuff that you see me doing during this session is already available in my pre-recorded lectures. In my pre-recorded lectures, I say the same thing, essentially with the same rhythm and syncopation, because it's the same content, right? I just did it in advance. So you don't have to wait for me for the lectures. You can actually go ahead. And truly, the real design of this course is this is remote asynchronous, which means that most of the learning is done independently. I'm just kind of filling our sessions with this, but we don't have to do this. If you guys want to talk about the homework or quiz or exam, we can actually work on that. We don't have to do this because I do expect you all to be watching my recordings on your own, right? Okay, so let's see. So now what we want to do is substitute each component with the numbers, right? So then the distance, I'm going to kind of work here. So first thing I'm going to do is replace each component with a blank set of parentheses. So I have my x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus my y2 minus y1 quantity squared, and I'm taking the square root. So we do the blank parentheses because that helps us to keep track of our negatives. We're less likely to make a mistake when we incorporate these blank parentheses, right? Without the blank parentheses, the chances of us making a mistake with the signs is increased, right? So our x2 is 3. Our x1 is -2. Our y2 is -4. And our y1 is 5, right? So notice with the blank parentheses right here, it should be clear that, oh, we have a double negative going on, right? So double negative becomes positive. Now, I think on the right-hand side, it doesn't affect anything, so we really didn't need it. But the main thing was that we were able to correctly handle this double negative here, and which is very easy to miss, especially without the parentheses, the extra set of parentheses, okay? So then 3 plus 2 becomes 5 squared. -4 minus 5 is -9 squared. Okay. So then that becomes 25 plus 81 square root, and that's the square root of 106. Again, just stop me, or if anything isn't clear, feel free to just unmute yourself to get my attention or type it in the chat. Also, all this that you see me writing will become available in our box link that you can access from Blackboard. Okay, so we did it by hand here, and then here we have a typed version of what we just experienced. Okay, so notice we got it to the point of the square root of 106, and then if we want that decimal, this point you would just use your calculator. Okay. Whew. Whew. Okay. I got to do this same presentation one more time after you guys. This is my third time today doing this presentation. So, I'm starting to feel it, but that's okay. Let's see. So say I were to I had 7 numbers, right? And I add up the 7 numbers and I divide by 7. What did I just find for those 7 numbers, right? Or say I had 5 numbers, I add them up and I divide by 5. What am I finding for these different sets? What am I finding? All right. You guys there? Let me see. Uh-oh. I think you guys can see my screen. And I think you're there. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see the
Oh, okay.
You just
But you saw the thing a moment.
I see you are sharing screen. That's it.
Just making sure. The midpoint formula.
No, I don't think it's on me right now.
Yeah, midpoint formula. It should be there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so basically what we were doing was finding the average of those different sets, right? We added 7 numbers up and divided by 7. That's finding the average. So that's the way I remember the midpoint formula, right? The midpoint formula essentially is the average of the x's, comma, average of the y's. So again, if you have your formula sheet, this is definitely one you want to add to your formula sheet. Okay, average of the x's, comma, average of the y's. Sorry. And so let's kind of move forward. So then here we're asked to find the midpoint of the line segment, joining the points, okay? So if we're going to use the midpoint formula, the recommendation is to write it down. So our midpoint, x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay. Also, what I like to do when I get ordered pairs, just label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay. Let me see. So the midpoint is going to be, I'll do this. We say x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Okay. Now let's see. Our x1 is -3. Our x2 is 1. Our y1 is 6. And our y2 is 4. Right. So I don't think we don't have to worry about the signs here too much. So we can essentially lose those extra parentheses. We'll get -2 over 2, comma, 10 over 2. And then that becomes -1, comma, 5. So those are the coordinates of the midpoint, the point halfway between these order pairs. And here's a typed version of what we just experienced. Okay. Are there any burning questions? Let me see. Do you guys have any questions? Let me see what's next. Let's kind of talk about this really quickly. An order pair AB is said to satisfy an equation with variables A, B if when A is substituted for X and B is substituted for Y in the equation, the resulting statement is true. So when we're looking at these graphs are a plot of ordered pairs, a plot of all solutions to the equation, right? So frequently the numerical value of the variable y can be determined by assigning appropriate values to the variable x. For this reason, y is sometimes referred to as the dependent variable and x is the independent variable. So like if we're given an equation and we wanted to look at the graph, the first technique that we have for right now for graphing equations is by plotting points. So we can choose several values of x, right, and find the corresponding y. And we're essentially out of time. I was trying to get to the example, but we ran out of time. So I'm going to have to leave this as an exercise for you. Again, my pre-recorded lectures are available. So I do expect you to just basically go to my YouTube and pull this up and you can jump straight to this part. And again, this has been available from the beginning. On Wednesday, we're going to work on section 1.2. But again, you're more than welcome. I would encourage you to go ahead and you can watch the lecture and go ahead and do that assignment as well. if you feel up to the task or you feel like you can do it, the further you can get in your head in your assignments, the better. So that way, if you just happen to finish all of your assignments early, so be it. And then that way, you'll just be waiting on the exams. So just make sure you get your attendance credit at each session, and you just be waiting on the exams. Aside from that, are there any burning questions before we go our separate ways? Any burning questions?
Do we have any assignments for today?
Yeah, it's already on. The assignments are loaded for the entire semester on My Math Lab, right? So we had some assignments due last night. So, you know, but even though they're due, you can still access them, and there's only a 10% late penalty. So just go ahead and
Where again? I'm sorry.
say it one more time.
Access them where again?
On My Math Lab. So if we go over to Blackboard, right, and we open up that main folder, which is this one. All right, so here, let's start here. This is the landing page when we open up Blackboard, okay? And then open up that folder. And so the assignments are, item number 3 is My Math Lab. So if we open this up and basically click on the first link, you want to register as a student using your student credentials, your student name, student email, that kind of stuff. And then on the page where you're prompted for payment, at the bottom of that screen is going to be a link that says get 14 days of temporary access. I would encourage you to get the 14 days of temporary access. Once you get past that, you'll see this stuff. The due date for each assignment is next to each assignment, okay? And the whole reason for the temporary access is because the administrators are negotiating a price reduction for you all. So see if we can get it to cost less than $120 or $130, whatever it is, okay? Unlimited attempts, even though those first assignments are past due, you can still go ahead and do them. You can earn up to a 90, and that late penalty is like minimal, a fraction of a percent, right? I'm not going to let that late penalty stop you. If you're close at the end, I'm not going to let that stop you, right? Let me see, will exams be posted? Yes, the exams will be posted, but those have a staggered release. So, and I'm glad you asked that. For instance, notice weeks 1, 2, and 3 are available, and then it skips from week 3 to week 4 because week 4 is going to be exam 1. Same thing for week 8 and week 12, right? So every 4 weeks we have an exam. Okay, these are good questions. I went on and made a copy of whatever we did together. I went on and made it access it here. So if we go to Blackboard and open up that main folder. So item number 2 is where you can get a copy of the PDF for each section. Okay, any other burning questions before we go separate ways? Go once, going twice. As you make your way through the homework, don't hesitate to use the Ask My Instructor. I'll respond to those inquiries as promptly as I can. But if I don't respond by the time we get into the next meeting, and if you haven't figured it out, then just ask me during the meeting. The real intent is for this time that we meet together to be like unofficial office hours. I just fill it with the lecture, like as a courtesy and just as a filler. But we could talk about the homework, quizzes, exams, all that kind of stuff during class if you guys want to. And then also it's important to be subscribed to my YouTube channel with your notifications turned on so that as I start responding to inquiries, as long as you're aware of what I'm posting and you can kind of just see the header, that's the main thing. You know, then you decide if you want to take the time to go through the video or not, okay? If there aren't any other burning questions, we're going to go ahead and end the session here. And from one beautiful mind to another, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you all same time, same place, but on Wednesday. Take care, guys. Peace. See in the chat. Yeah, we talked about that.